I don't like the sound of these cameras in court. Cameras at the Old Bailey, don't like the sound of that at all. Quick postscript to where we came in yesterday. Did you see the front page of today's Daily Telegraph? Look at that, just below the masthead there. Stubble trouble. UK's toughest police chief tells officers to shave. Ooh, UK's toughest police chief. He's super butch. That would be Stephen Watson of Greater Manchester. Oh, he's so tough. He's so tough. What does he do apart from crack down on the designer stubble of his constabulary? Does he solve crimes? Does he arrest ne'er-do-wells? Well, the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police arrests people who go to council meetings and are impertinent enough to complain about all the little girls being gang raped in Oldham. As you know, and you certainly should know, for the entirety of this century, thousands and thousands of poor English girls in towns across the realm have been abused by Pakistani rape gangs. That's the unfortunate reality of vibrant diversity. There's two kinds of evil at play here. There are the guys who like raping little girls, a lot more than you'd think, because they organise themselves in Rotherham and Oldham and Telford into fairly open social clubs for serial gang rape. It's not a dark, furtive taste you have to keep to yourself. It's shared and networked and structured through local businesses such as taxi firms, and indeed through the council departments and welfare agencies and even the police stations themselves. So those are the guys who do the raping of the little girls. Then there are the guys who don't actually rape the little girls themselves, but they couldn't care less about the guys who do. So they're part of the problem because they enable the problem. And they're policemen, and they're social workers, and they're counsellors. And we call them out on this show because no matter how they fail their most basic duty to protect the most vulnerable in their communities, somehow, through all the damning reports, they manage to keep their jobs and their pensions and all the rest of it. And as long as they're in charge in these cities, the gang raping will continue, which is not a small thing. Yesterday we mentioned something extraordinary. In Oldham, 12-year-old rape victims get sloughed off by the desk officer in the police station and then taken away by more rapists while they're waiting in the lobby. That's not, alas, the extraordinary part. That's just the way it is in Oldham. What's extraordinary is that the same regime that's totally indifferent to the serial gang rape of little girls is extremely touchy and sensitive if the citizens are minded to bring it up at public meetings. So in Oldham, the council and the coppers who did nothing about the Pakistani rape gangs are now issuing ASBOs, that's anti-social behaviour orders. They're now issuing ASBOs to residents who have the poor taste to complain about the council's indifference to the gang rape. And in fact, they're arresting citizens who go to meetings and complain about the indifference to all the gang rape. We mentioned that yesterday, and we read out the frankly absurd and unconvincing response to our queries from both the council and Greater Manchester Police. What I didn't realise yesterday is that at least one victim of these rape gangs was present at that council meeting. She is doubly victimised, both by her rapists and by Oldham Council, because it's alleged that members of the council steered the so-called independent review into Oldham gang rape away from this poor girl by falsely claiming that she didn't want to be interviewed and in fact was near suicidal. Here is Councillor Brian Hobin demanding answers on her behalf.
Who was responsible for telling the review team not to interview Sam? It's a very important question. We need to identify them individuals and find out what's happening to them. So who were the people responsible for trying to stop Sam being interviewed by this review team?
Take both of those with Gerard.
Go on, we'll take both of them.
Gerard.
Nobody attempted to avoid Samantha being interviewed. That's not true.
But excuse me.
Sorry, Councillor Hoban.
I'm going to come back on that, Gerard. Gerard, we have the victim in this room tonight, so be careful what you say.
Yeah, be careful what you say. Something is rotten in the state of Oldham and of Telford, Rotherham, Rochdale, on and on. The dishonesty continues, the corruption continues, the betrayal of England's girls continues. If you're into politics, these are, as it happens, Labour Party towns for virtually the entirety of living memory. Could be just coincidence, but it would be worth talking about, don't you think? And yet Keir Starmer and the Labour leadership never get asked about the Pakistani gang rapists or the Labour councillors who deny justice to their victims. We're going to stay on this story. But let me know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We're starting a brand new feature here on the Mark Steyn Show. Could apply to all kinds of areas of life. The nothing to see here spot. We may do it once a week. We may do it once a minute, which wouldn't be very difficult. So let's kick it off with a story from West Australia. Nothing to see here, folks. Look at this. Mortuary too full to take body. Mortuary too full to take body. This is at the Queen Elizabeth Medical Centre in Perth, according to a nurse at Sir Charles Gairdner Hospital, who says it's the first time she can recall the state mortuary being too full to take a new corpse. Get used to it. This is like NHS 2.0. There's now a waiting list for the morgue. But altogether now, nothing to see here. In totally unrelated news, non-COVID excess deaths in England and Wales. Just to be clear, these are not COVID deaths, they're deaths for other things. And for the last 3 months, they've been running at an excess of just shy of 1,000 per week, which is a lot of excess deaths. It works out about 12% more dead people than there should be. Take a look at the red line on this graph. That's the cumulative number of excess deaths. Looks mostly for cardiovascular reasons when I had a look at it earlier. It just started heading up in mid-April and it hasn't stopped. That's England and Wales. The government statistics guys don't seem to be in any hurry to investigate why thousands of people who shouldn't be dead are dead.